by denying those members of Congress the right to enter, by the way, they were going primarily to visit the Palestinian territories and meet with Palestinians. And by denying them the ability to enter to make those meetings happen, Israel simply proved their point that there is an apartheid system effectively on the ground. Because it wasn't the Palestinians who made the decision for themselves about whether they wanted to meet American members of Congress or not, but Israel decided that for the Palestinians, which simply proves that the Palestinians are a captive population living under Israeli military control without a say in their lives, and they're effectively living under military dictatorship, which is precisely the kind of criticism that they're under by Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. It's because they're not a true democracy based on the way that they treat Palestinians. And as far as Donald Trump, the person who, when speaking to the Republican Jewish coalition, said that you won't support me because you like to control politicians with your money and I don't need your money, for him to be turning around and accusing anybody of anti-Semitism is simply gaslighting, and it's just preposterous hypocrisy.
All right, Aaron, your response?
Yeah, I mean, there were so many anti-Israel slurs in there and smears, I don't think I can address them. So I want to stay focused on this denial of entry here, the very specific reason, because I hear all the time in the media in the last 24 hours is that, or 12, is that this is unprecedented. It's never happened before. That's true. And it's also unprecedented that we've never had congresswomen who are viciously, rabidly anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli, and who are using their congressional platforms to push the illegitimate anti-Semitic boycott, divestment, sanctions, BDS movement that, make no mistake about it, is seeking the economic destruction, the ultimate dismantlement, in fact, of the Jewish state. There's a reason that Israel singles out BDS supporters. And only a few weeks ago, these two congresswomen actually tried to push a resolution aiming at supporting the BDS movement in Congress. That's why they were banned, for their support of BDS, not for, by the way, their anti-Semitic statements, specifically for their support of the BDS movement that seeks Israel's destruction.
Omar, you were shaking your head. Your response?
So Israel lets in actual anti-Semites. That is something that Amnesty International has documented, that they welcome more criminals from all around the world. They welcomed the Polish anti-Semitic leaders from a party over there. So ultimately their issue is not really with anti-Semitism. And again, they love Trump. And when you look at the kinds of statements that Trump has engaged in, that's also affirmation for the fact that this is not the concern here. The concern is that Israel does not treat Palestinians as equal human beings. They do not give them any rights. They constantly engage in acts of ethnic cleansing, home demolition. They shoot at unarmed protesters, at journalists, at medical personnel. And all of this is documented by every major human rights organization in the world. And the fear is that members of Congress who are interested in that particular topic, interested in Palestinian human rights, would pose a threat to continued American support for Israeli apartheid. And that is what it's really about at the end of the day. And frankly, I just want to point out that at a time when anti-Semitism is a real and rising problem in the US, we had 2 synagogue shootings in the past year. 12 people were killed as a result of it. To be trivializing the charge of anti-Semitism by just tossing it around at people who are critical of Israeli policy or supportive of Palestinian rights is utterly contemptible. This is the time to take anti-Semitism seriously, and this is a really irresponsible way to be throwing it around.
Yeah, again, you're throwing all these anti-Israel conspiracy theories out there, and I don't have the time to address it. So once more, I want to stress
they're
that
they're not conspiracy theories. Human rights organizations document them.
The issue is, again, not about anti-Semitism. Israel does allow anti-Semites, and exactly, this is a step beyond that. Israel has banned members of the BDS campaign. These 2 congresswomen, number one, have, again, used their congressional purge to try to push legislation promoting economic terrorism against the Jewish state. And number 2, they were clearly trying to use their very visit to do just that. These are unprecedented times. Israel's never had to deal in the past with a situation like this. And so that's why a lot of people are surprised by this move. I mean, just the fact that they had to go so far. Israel, the great democracy that it is, and the best friend of Israel, of America in the Middle East and maybe around the world, the fact that they had to go so far to do this shows you how extremist these 2 congresswomen are.
Very quickly, Aaron, because there are some pro-Israel groups in the United States that were very clear about saying they disagreed with this move. Do you think that ultimately the Prime Minister should have barred entry?
I'm not so sure about all of these stories that he did it because of a Trump tweet that came out like an hour before this decision was made. Clearly, the Israeli government has been deliberating this for a little bit longer than just 1 hour. and they got their itinerary. They saw that they were coming in to support this BDS movement. So I think that has a lot more to do with it. And this sets an example for other people in Congress, or actually, let's say, in Europe, who are thinking of also using European institutions to support BDS, and then wanting to come in with basically a high-profile publicity stunt for the BDS movement. That's what that was, and I hope that this sends a very clear message to other leaders, especially in Europe, who might think of doing something similar.
Omar, very quick question here. Do you think that everything... go ahead, respond.
So, first of all, everything that I'm talking about Israel, the policies that Israel carries out that have been labeled conspiracies, are documented by every major human rights organization in the world, incling Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, and even Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem. So the idea, the entire world, basically, all human rights organizations in the world are radical and are somehow part of an anti-Israel conspiracy.
Gentlemen, we can keep going for another 10 minutes. I know that. Omar Badar, Aaron Klein, we thank you so much, both of you, for being here. We actually have to hit a break.